To Anywhere and Everywhere, Beware. The Chronicles of Samuel. Written and read by Jack Haig. Chapter 4. Before venturing through the door again, I inspected the area outside the house where the door should be. I grabbed a ladder and climbed onto the roof. There was the exterior wall. The obsidian-like material was nowhere to be seen, and everything looked as it should. Nothing you wouldn't expect for an attic, except the lack of windows. Next, I grabbed some tools to bring along, basic adventuring items that were common amongst the resources I had read about when exploring. Water, flashlight, some food, and something to defend myself. I decided on a poker from the old fireplace downstairs. A compass was also recommended, but I didn't have one to hand, or a shop nearby to buy one, so I figured my phone would do for now, and I'd order one online. The wonders of next day delivery. I stored everything in a backpack for ease of carrying. I also tucked away my bestiary in progress and some writing implements so I could make some notes as I explored. I thought I was prepared. Of course, I was not. How could I be? I was about to venture into the unknown and unfathomable. I was walking into a door in my attic and walking out into anywhere. Nobody could prepare for that. Not really. But I was sure I was. I took my adventuring kit and turned the key. There was the grinding sound I'd heard in my sleep, echoing across the walls. It stopped, and I slowly opened the door. As I said, I was to take the scientific approach. My methodology was simple. 1. Open the door, cautiously. 2. Look through the door and ensure there was nothing threatening on the other side. 3. Inspect the area and watch for anything that could eat me, attack me, or maim me before going in. 4. Then, and only if it appeared safe to do so, would I enter. 5. Should there be anything that appeared harmful on the other side, I would close the door swiftly and lock it. Then repeat until a desirable outcome is achieved. I thought this was a perfectly sound plan, although hastily thought up, and decided I was ready to open the door again. Once the door was open, I saw a dark grey film on the other side. It was like a dense fog had engulfed the doorway. I was not entirely prepared for this. I also wasn't prepared to walk through or touch a thick fog in a magic doorway. I held my fireplace poker at the ready, and slowly jabbed through the threshold, piercing the mist. The poker disappeared into the mist, and when it returned, it was covered in a thick, slimy substance that dissolved into the air shortly after being pulled back through. It wasn't mist at all, it was something else entirely. I tried shoving the poker back through the doorway, and the poker only went about half as far this time. After a couple of prods, the poker started to vibrate. Then it was pulled from my hands and into the doorway. Luckily, without me attached to it. This was where step 5 of my perfectly sound plan came into action. Before I could find out what tugged from the other side, I abandoned the poker, closed the door, and locked it rather quickly. There, I thought to myself, the plan works. Although I was breathing heavily and my heart rate had certainly increased, I was rather pleased that I hadn't completely buggered everything and fallen in. I took out the bestiary in progress and added a few notes about the experience, and this is when I began including sections about how it made me feel. The panic was there, as it was with the hulking ape-like creature above me, but this time it was exhilarating. I was excited, and looking back, I can safely say this is where my confidence started blossoming. I started out terrified about what could be on the other side, but now I was intrigued and eager for more. I came to find that the more I used the door, the more it excited me, the more enticing it became, and its allure more prominent. After jotting my notes into the book, I tried again. I still wasn't sure how it worked and wanted to run some more tests. This time, I turned the key, waited for the gears to silence, and slowly opened the door. I was greeted by fire. Before me was something I'd never imagined I'd see up close. It was like an active volcano had engulfed the land with molten rock and hadn't stopped flowing in quite some time. There was an actual lake of lava bubbling in front of me. There was a small gap of land between the doorway and the fiery lake. This patch of land was also on fire. If I were a religious individual, I may have believed I was looking straight into hell. Now, I knew it probably wasn't wise to stick my hand in there directly, and since I had already lost the fireplace poker, my only reasonable option was the brush used to clean the ash. So I grabbed that and slowly poked it into the door, brush side first. As the bristles crossed the threshold of the door, they immediately curled in the heat and burst into flame. It was seconds before the bristles were mere specks of ash floating in the air. The brush, just like the poker, had a brass body and handle. It was all one unit, with the brush wired into the end and sealed. I noticed the handle was becoming hot. Quite hot, actually, and the end of the bristleless brush was now melting, bowing down towards the floor. I was so distracted by the swiftness of the melting that I didn't realize how hot the end I was holding was getting, and I was forced to drop the handle. Half inside the hellscape, half in my attic, the brass material hit the floor and branded the wooden flooring with its shape. I kicked the handle into the doorway before too much damage was done, and before anything set on fire inside, but the charred branding on my floor remained. I didn't close the door immediately. I stared right into the fiery pools before me in awe. I actually took a picture on my phone. It's a little blurry. Eagerly shaking hands will do that, but I knew I'd probably never get the chance to capture such a sight again. I suppose I also wanted to keep something as proof it had happened for my own sanity. I'd always have something as a reminder if the door just stopped working. After a while, I shut the door without turning the key. I didn't realize it until after shutting the door that none of the heat actually escaped the doorway. It only transferred through the brass material. I made a note of this in my book alongside a few other thoughts and feelings. After I was done scribbling my notes, I looked at the photo again. I also backed up my phone just in case. When I opened the door again, the lake of lava had been replaced by an ocean view. It was picturesque. An undisturbed beach setting, waves flowing in and out, as if it were breathing. I snapped another picture of the view like a world-traversing tourist and smiled. I had never really had the option to travel as a child or during my studies. Poverty will have that effect. After I began working, I hadn't really thought about it. The safety net of a monthly wage and comfort of a healthy bank account was always more appealing than wandering crowded streets or risking a mugging in a foreign country. I liked the comfort of my own home and the safety it brought more than I desired experiencing airports, bus travel, and the general public. This doorway had become my own secret travel agent, with the only cost being how insanely random each destination would be. The doorway even offered some safety. I thought that if I didn't go into the scary places, they couldn't hurt me. And now, presented with an empty beach and calm waves, I knew there was potential for pleasant lands. It was the perfect time to open the door here. The sun was setting at the edge of the horizon, and the sky was flowing with colour, snaking from behind the sun and warping the sky into my personal light show. From my view in the doorway, I could not see anything even remotely dangerous. Not that I could even begin to imagine what could or could not be dangerous when the rules I understood in nature didn't seem to apply. So, I decided to step through. I started with just one foot, edging the tip of my boot into the door. Nothing bad happened, so I edged further. After my leg and one arm had entered and I wasn't bursting into flames, I pushed on and forced my entire body through. The sight from inside was magical. The sky was moving in line with the waves, like the entire world was breathing with me inside it. The colours were mixed green with deep purples that started out black in the centre and edged into a spiralling galaxy of colours. The colours swirled around above me, coral pinks, oceanic greenish blues, and purples that would make an amethyst jealous. I took a picture of this too, though I kept having the issue where your camera won't focus properly and the colours just wouldn't come out right. After a while, I felt a little silly, like an influencer trying to get the best photo with hundreds of takes, so I stopped and walked towards the ocean. I wanted to be in the moment, not just a tourist stuck behind a camera. It wasn't a long walk, only maybe the length of a football field or two. I was about a quarter of the way when I realised I hadn't checked where I'd entered. I was completely distracted by the nebula of colours above me, so I retraced my steps and inspected the doorway I'd entered from. It was like an arch carved into the base of a massive cliff. The obsidian-looking rim edged the entire doorway on this side too, but there were no markings, patterns, or words to see, only the rim. I could clearly see the door through the arches into my attic, where I had opened it. The rim of the doorway connected directly to the wall, as if bonded seamlessly. I could see the clock on my table inside the attic, and was surprised to see the hand moving slowly, a tick of the hand every 5 seconds or so. I made a mental note of this to include in my book. My bestiary was becoming more of a travel journal. The beach seemed to spread for miles on either side of the door, and looked very similar whether I looked left or right. I could easily get lost here if I strayed too far. I walked back towards the ocean to get a closer look, taking in the setting sun as I made my way. The ocean was clear, the waves flowed slowly, and I felt at ease. This was the first place I hadn't felt on edge. I took off my shoes, socks, and trousers and sat in the sand for a while. There was a lovely warm breeze gently caressing me as the water touched my feet and the sun slowly set. I watched as it turned from deep orange to red, then pink, and finally it was gone. There were countless stars out by the time the sun disappeared, and to my amazement, there were multiple moon-like objects beginning to appear in the sky, illuminating the area around me enough to feel a sense of safety. I could even still see the little light of my attic through the doorway in the distance. I was content. For the first time in a very long time, I was okay just being present. A while after the sun disappeared, the air cooled a bit, and I got dressed. Taking shoes and socks in hand, I lay in the sand, only closer to the safety of the doorway, and enjoyed the stunning view of the sky. I was quite confident this was not Earth. There was nothing like this on Earth. To my knowledge, we do not have multiple moons of varying colours. I didn't mind this. I rather felt more at home here, wherever here was, than where I'd come from. I watched as shooting stars shined across the sky in front of me. The ocean splashed in the background, and I fell asleep. I was awoken by waves splashing against my still bare feet. The tide must have risen, and that was my cue to leave. I was happy to see the door was still open, and the clock had only moved about an hour. I walked back through the door into my attic and sat in the chair, feeling quite rested. I decided not to close the door to this place, and left it slightly open, in hopes I could return when it was light again and explore. Maybe I could even do a spot of fishing.